All right, welcome to part 4 of the East Asian world. Now we're going to take a look at Ming politics. Ming politics was dominated by scholars and eunuchs. Now, the scholars were chosen through the examination system. The examination system is something that dates way back into the earlier dynasties. You could obtain different levels in the bureaucracy by passing these state-sanctioned exams. And these exams had survived several different dynastic cycles, even when like, for example, when the Mongol dynasty took over and imparted their Sinization, they adopted the examination system. Right? Some of these scholars became very powerful. Like, for example, Yang Ming is going to develop his own faction, which is going to be a Neo-Confucius melting of Buddhism and Taoism, right? And he's going to create a large, powerful cadre behind it. Some of them will be less noble. Like, for example, Li Ji, that he is going to actually have his faction is going to have a policy of acting naturally and spontaneously, which included things like frequenting prostitutes, he would shave his head like a Buddhist monk, right? Matter of fact, ultimately, Li Qi was denounced in the imperial court, right, and was ultimately deposed as a result. Now, the other side of this were the eunuchs. Now, eunuchs were just poor criminal slaves, right, that were recruited into the ranks. You had to have somebody to do the household duties of the imperial state, right, to serve the emperor. And so these guys would go in there to do that, these household slaves. But the thing was, is whoever had the emperor's ear could wield power. And many of these eunuchs would be very intelligent people, and they would manipulate the emperor to their own whims. And so you actually have power struggles within the court between these scholars and these eunuchs. And when we take a look at the last 4 Ming emperors, they're all so weak that these internal factions in the imperial court are going to become quite dominant. One of these scholars that will rise to prominence is a man named Hai Rui. Now, Hai Rui had only attained a Class 2 certification in the examination system, which only made him eligible to low bureaucratic offices. But he was so prominent in and he built such a reputation around himself that he'll form the core of a political party called the Donglin Party. He was very strict adherer to Neo-Confucian values, right? Values of austerity, of strict morality, frugality, and he was a very strong critic if you didn't follow these particular tenets, these Confucian tenets, right? Matter of fact, one of his political opponents, who was a high member of court, when he suddenly died, Hai Rui suddenly found himself thrust into the high court in Beijing itself, which was pretty shocking for him. First of all, he'd never attained the kind of examination certification to go there. But when he was in Beijing, he was absolutely shocked by what he saw. The massive amount of corruption, the absentee leadership of the emperor, Emperor Qing was one of the ones that was trying to obtain immortality by drinking Taoist elixirs, right? It was so bad, in fact, that Hai Rui actually wrote a critique of the emperor himself, in which he stated, "It has already been some time since the people under heaven started to regard your majesty as unworthy." Basically, he's saying you've lost the mandate of heaven. All right, the mandate of heaven, this is the Chinese belief that the power of the emperor resides in obtaining and holding the mandate of heaven, and that when a dynasty collapses because that emperor lost the mandate of heaven and it had shifted to somebody else, usually the dynasty that rose up and replaced it, right? They'll claim that they've attained the mandate of heaven. Okay, so this is a scathing critique. It's so bad, in fact, that it takes Zhongxian a month to respond to it, right? But he does, right? He sentences Hai Rui to death. Now, this death sentence is never carried out, because before it can be carried out, in 1566, Jie Qing dies, and Hai Rui is pardoned, right? Now, Hairui, under the new emperor's court, the emperor named Longqing, will have a pretty ineffective career, but the political party that he created, the Donglin Party, and the principles behind it will carry on. The Donglin Party would carry on the legacy and the examples set by Hairui, right? The examples of frugality and morality. And for the next 30 years or so, they are going to be a dominant faction inside the imperial court. Now, they said everything for them centers around this idea of filial piety, which for them is actually going to cause some issues inside not just the Ming court, but sometimes with the emperor itself. For example, when the Donglin suspected that the Emperor Wanli was trying to demote his eldest son so that he could make the son of his favorite concubine the heir to the imperial throne, they are going to very openly dispute this this effort by the emperor himself, right? So when the heir to the palace, the oldest son, was attacked on May 30th, 1615, the Donglin Party claimed that this man with the stick, that's what he was referred to, the man with the stick, was part of some wider conspiracy by the emperor himself in order to get rid of this eldest son so that he could promote this favorite son of his favorite concubine, right? So they were behind this idea of a conspiracy theory towards the throne. The downfall to the Donglin was when you had the Tianqi emperor take the throne. Remember, the Tianqi emperor was not interested in doing any imperial duties. He was interested in doing really crappy carpentry. This guy was uninterested in governing and, quite frankly, stupid. So he left all of his decision making to his favorite eunuch. Remember, that's the other aspect of the political factions here. His favorite eunuch was Wei Zhongxian. So who is Wei Zhongxian? Well, honestly, he's a street thug from Beijing who, for reasons unknown, submitted himself to castration and found his way into the imperial court as one of the eunuchs to the imperial house, right? Now, he's illiterate, but he's very intelligent, right? And so when you have the Tianqi emperor come to power, this was perfect for him because this allowed him to create a network, right? He became the favorite eunuch of the emperor who's disinterested in doing any imperial duties. Zhongxian is going to build a cadre around him by appointing friends and loyal eunuchs to very important posts, right? So he builds this network of support, and then he also very brutally suppressed anyone who opposed him. For example, when the Donglin Party composed a series of accusations against him called the 24 Crimes, the emperor stood by his favorite eunuch and denounced the Donglin Party, allowing Wei Zhongxian to ruthlessly persecute the Donglin Party, right? He began rounding up scholars and torturing them and executing them. In total, there was dozens that were executed. It wasn't until the death of the Tianqi emperor that Wei Zhongxian found himself without any friends around him. The new emperor was Zhongxian, and Wei Zhongxian was denounced to the new emperor, and as a result of this, with no friends and nowhere to turn, finally on the 14th of December, 1627, Wei Zhongxian is going to commit suicide.